All right, we're live with Summer and Andre Get Resource, where we talk about anything that about resourcing our power, getting connected to our self source and others. And today we have a special guest with us, Mr. Steve Horne. And we always like to open it up first with a check-in of what's alive in you. So what's alive in you, Summer?
There's a little bit of heaviness around my eyes. I think this temperature change from -30 to like 0 is too much for me. It's a bit shocking. Um, I don't feel like I have as much energy as I usually do. Yet at the same time, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. So yeah, that's what's alive in me.
Mm.
And what is alive in you?
All right. This moment, energy, excitement, eagerness of this conversation, being in these spaces is so nurturing. Even on 3 hours of sleep, yeah, there's a story
Yeah.
behind 3 hours of sleep. I'm actually energized and awake right now when I wasn't. Yeah. So that's what's alive in me right now. So I want to bring on our guests here and yeah, share with Mr. Steve Horne, with those that are checking us out on LinkedIn, YouTube, Get Resource, and Facebook and Instagram. Mr. Steve Horne, welcome, brother. And I want to speak
Hello.
to him and really, share what is Steve Horne connected with, involved with, and sharing here. So he's an empowerment coach helping men with ADHD harness their strengths, rewrite their narratives, and confidently navigate life. His methodology has transformed countless of lives, focused on building self acceptance and using practical methods to manage ADHD, choosing dedication over medication. He's about to launch the Rad Brainz Podcast, which celebrates ADHD in all its glory, featuring inspiring guests and success stories from around the globe. And Steve's mission is to shift the perception of ADHD from being seen as a disorder to being recognized as a dynamic difference. I love that. And I want to check in with you, Steve. What's alive in you right
E-
now?
Excitement. I'm excited to be here talking, and bit of ADHD hyperactivity going on, so I'm feeling that. It's the end of the week, so there's joy for the weekend coming up, and I'm happy to be chatting with you guys.
Mm, yeah. Well, pleasure to have you on here. And
Thanks.
yeah.
And I might tease you a little bit with your accent. Where are you from?
I'm from
Tell us.
Scotland.
Yes,
I'm from
Scotland.
Scotland. I'm from the east coast of Scotland. But my accent doesn't sound very Scottish because I was away for a long time. Like from when I was 17, I moved away. So I lived in London for about 26 years. So my accent has picked up many other accents and kind of smoothed down a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it sounds more British.
Yeah, it sounds funny when you do that accent. It sounds very posh.
Yes. Well, the British
Yeah,
tends to be posh, anyways. Yes. It's one of
yeah.
my
But
most favorite
I,
accents to people with.
yeah. I'm living back in Scotland now. I moved back here in 2019, so I'm back. I'm back where I started. Come full
Mm,
circle.
yeah. So we like to open it up with your story, Steve. Like how did you get to be in a place to help men with ADHD?
Oh well, I started coaching in 2018. I did my coaching diploma then, and when I began doing the training, very quickly it became evident that I was struggling with the program and struggling to keep up, and it felt like I'd gone back to school again. And I was like, oh God, I'm falling behind, and I could see people progressing way ahead of me, and I was not doing the hours I needed to with the coaching to pass the diploma. So I spoke to them about that and said, can I have a little bit of time to sort of catch up? And I thought I need to explore why I'm feeling like this. Like, why am I struggling again? So I went to the doctor and said, I think I have potentially have ADHD because I can't do certain things, anything that involves a lot of concentration or anything that I'm really not enjoying doing, which was a lot of this sort of academic side of things, I was struggling with. So I got the ADHD diagnosis then, and that was 2020, and I was 46. So then I realized, wow, I've got ADHD. That's why I've always struggled with anything that involves concentration, long-term focus, anything that is kind of involves a lot of mental power. And then when I started coaching, I wasn't talking about ADHD. I was still trying to sort of mask, because I've masked my whole life. And I carried on thinking, right, I'm going to just not talk about the ADHD, just try and look like I have everything, all my stuff together, and I keep the ADHD a secret in the background. But then I
pause you just there, because over your microphone, we can hear scratching and like moving, and it's quite loud.
Oh, okay, that might just be my cable scratching on the side of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Where was I?
Struggling with academic.
And then so I started working with guys, but I wasn't helping them with ADHD. I was just helping them with whatever, all coaches to all men in the beginning. And then I realized that my strength was to talk about my own struggles, talk about the ADHD, talk about what I dealt with on a daily basis, and not try and keep that hidden in the background. So I just lent into that and went full on into the ADHD. And then that's been very successful for me, because it's basically what I do every day with myself. And I just help my clients with that. So that is how I got into working with men, and then got into the ADHD side of things. It's only been like 5 years for me. So it still feels like the beginning of my own journey, even though it's been 5 years, it's still like early days.
Yeah, it's so true that, I can only lead people as far as I've gone. And typically what I notice in the coaching industry is like, it's my journey, and the people I serve, generally maybe a couple steps behind me.
Yeah.
Though this is the project, this is the body of work.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you don't need to be miles and miles and miles ahead of someone to help. Just one step ahead.
Yeah, Sherpas that are too far up the mountain can't help someone that actually can't tell them where the next steps are.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And you mentioned you got diagnosed, I think, at the age of 46, you said, with ADHD?
Yeah, 46.
46, yeah. Okay. And what do you think of diagnosis? Is it useful, not useful?
For me, it was hugely life-changing. It was so powerful for me, because I'd always known since I was as far back as I can remember, I always felt different. I always, especially then when I went to school, that's when the difference was highlighted even more for me. And so when I got the diagnosis, it was so much clarity, this great sense of just relief. I felt so overjoyed that I'd got the diagnosis, and but then loads of other things come up after that: sadness, frustration, resentment, all these other feelings as to why didn't I get the diagnosis young? What would my life have been like? How could things have been different? So all these emotions come for a good few weeks or months, and then they sort of all passed. And then I was just comfortable with the diagnosis. And a lot of people, I speak to a lot of people, and they think, I'm not going to bother with the diagnosis because I'm pretty sure I've got ADHD. I don't see the point of getting the diagnosis, but it does bring a huge something that you can't really put a word on. It just brings this great inner peace when you know, and then everything else starts to make more sense, definitely. And you accept yourself more, because you know for sure, right, okay, you don't need to carry around like a sandwich board with ADHD on it or anything. You don't need to label yourself, but it's just knowing that's what's going on. Then it's like, okay, I know what's going on now, so I know how to go about working along with it.
Yeah, I hear that. To make sense of things, having clarity, and with that comes ease. And then rather than treating it as a label to, like, I'll speak for myself, deprecate myself or see myself less than. It's more about getting that clarity and making things make sense so that I can work with it. I can feel empowered
Yeah.
to now know how to operate. It's like
Yeah.
a user manual.
Yeah, user manual, exactly. But that's the thing. That's the empowerment. It's like, right, I know I've got this difference now. I know my brain works differently. So how can I harness that rather than feel like it's a limitation? Because a lot of guys get the diagnosis and then they feel like, oh, I've got ADHD. I'm not quite, as good as I could be, because it is. A lot of people do think of it as a disability, and it can be hugely debilitating. A lot of people that throw around the term superpower, but I don't like to use the term superpower because it can be debilitating. So some days it sort of stops you in your tracks from doing anything. Even the thing you want to do most, you're not able to do it. So I don't think that's a superpower. But I think it does open the door to the possibility and to access your strengths in a different way. It gives you this unique advantage. So if you then are fully accepting of it, then you can do great things with the ADHD. It doesn't hold you back. But you need to fully accept that it's not going away. You're never going to win. You're never going to beat the ADHD. You're never going to stop it. So you just have to accept, right, this is how it is, and then work around it the best you can.
Fascinating. So I'm curious about one thing you said. I just want to check in with you too, because I think your cord, like it's rubbing quite a lot.
Oh, sorry. Is that really annoying?
It just sounds like static, and so it's harder to stay focused on your voice while it's moving. So I don't know if there's a way to make it stationary or maybe use a different microphone, because it's very evident. Yeah, it's kind of like it just sounds.
Okay, well, maybe just take the headphones off.
We could test that. Yeah.
Okay. What's that?
Let's see. Say something and see. Can we hear you?
Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, there's less static, but then there's keep talking, Steve. Like, just say a sentence or something.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
There's a bit of a lag now, it seems, with the sound in your voice.
Okay. I'll go back to, I've got different headphones. I'll try them.
Okay, yeah. We'll just see. I don't know if that's always the case with the cord that moves, hey?
Yeah, just the mic picks up a lot of background sound. Yeah.
Okay. Better? Speak and move around and let's see.
Yeah. Yeah, better.
Better?
That's great. Perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yay,
better.
Okay.
Better.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yay. So I have a curiosity, because you said one thing that really piqued my interest when you were introducing yourself, and that was you found what you were really struggling with was the things that you really didn't enjoy, like the academic stuff and stuff like that. And I watched a video. I wish I had it, because it was about ADHD, and this gentleman had said that, maybe we're not meant to do the things that we don't most enjoy. Maybe we're not supposed to be that focused. Maybe that's very almost slave driven or military or mechanical, and we're not that. And so I can see, as people going to work and needing to do repetitive tasks, that's a real problem. But maybe as sentient beings, that's actually, like in the industrial age, a lot of people work 9 to 5, but is that really what we're supposed supposed to be doing. And so that kind of piqued my interest, because I know I find it very challenging to focus on tasks that I don't want to do, and sometimes it's my judgment of myself about doing it that makes it even harder for me to do it. So I'm curious about your thoughts about that.
I think that if we all loved doing really boring things, it'd be a very dull world that we lived in. You know, if everyone just enjoyed doing the most monotonous jobs and tasks, it wouldn't be a very interesting world. I think that the ADHD brain has been hugely important in creating so much change in the world. And I agree. I think the ADHD brain is not designed to do certain things, and other people's brains are. Which makes, I mean, have you heard of there's a book called A Hunter and a Farmer's World, which is talking about the ADHD brain is the hunter and the farmer is the neurotypical brain, because they're, out plowing the fields and sowing crops at specific times of the year, and then the ADHD brain is out there hunting, foraging, building, collecting firewood, watching over the other people while they sleep, all that kind of stuff. So it does seem like we were put on Earth for a specific reason.
Interesting. And I'm curious, because ADHD was not a recognized thing 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago. And so is it an evolution? Why are there more people now? And I don't know, like, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual changes every few years based on our evolution about what's happening. And so I'm curious your thoughts about, because there seems to be a lot of people with ADHD, like everywhere I turn, people are like, oh, I'm ADHD and I'm ADHD. Like, there seems to be so much of it ever since it was kind of something that I learned about a while ago.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more of it going on, and the waiting list to get diagnosed is so long in the UK. At the moment, it's like 5-6 years in my area to get diagnosed.
Wow. Years.
Yeah, years. In some parts of the UK, it's even more than that. And when I got diagnosed in 2020, I had to wait a few months. So in 5 years, it's gone to that extreme. I think there's a lot more awareness of ADHD. It gets spoken about a lot more, so people are a lot more clued up into the possibility that they might have that. And I know with women, a lot of women now are diagnosed, which for years was misdiagnosed or completely ignored. So now the diagnosis in women is a lot more accurate. So loads more women are being diagnosed, especially later diagnosed as well, because throughout their life they've struggled with, told they had this or that, and it was depression a lot of the time, and it's misdiagnosed ADHD. So that is one reason that it seems to be sort of on the tip of everyone's tongue at the moment. ADHD this, ADHD that. So that's what I think. That's why.
There's also, what I hear too is there's greater awareness. So perhaps it's always kind of been there, but not talked about. Like how 30 years ago people don't talk about trauma. I don't have trauma, right? Or yeah. So I'm curious though, like, if you're noticing, like currently, like, are there? Because when I make a judgment of like the phone and the many different tabs and multitasking and the number of distractions and the busyness, would that also like start creating that ADHD or that new wiring in the brain? I'm just curious about the neuroscience in terms of behavioral patterns where I'm adapting to the busyness of life. I'm adapting to the things that are designed to take my time and attention, and so then I'm more scattered. I'm more overwhelmed. I'm more restless. Yeah, I'm curious about that. If you have something to say
I,
that?
I think that it can definitely make it worse. If you have ADHD, that is one of the biggest problems out there. Is everything's distracts you. Everything's designed to take your attention now. It's manufactured to take your attention. Attention is the number one currency. So for ADHD, that's the biggest concern, because every time everything you do throughout the day is just trying to distract you. So I don't think that kind of thing creates ADHD. It's something that you have, but it certainly makes it worse. I think that you can feel like you have ADHD because you become so distracted and overwhelmed, and you become incapable of focusing. You lose the ability to focus just through constant distraction and all day tabs, notifications, texts. It just drives you mad.
I'm hearing a distinction, between like something that like is inherently within me, my being, my blueprint, my user manual, versus
Mm.
ADHD being manufactured based
Mm.
on the environment. Yeah.
Mm. I mean, it's still not clear why we have ADHD, like what causes it, why someone has it. A lot of people think it might be genetic. Some people say trauma. It's not clear. There's still a bit of mystery around exactly why we have it, it makes it an exciting, interesting topic, because it's still not clear.
I'm curious, your idea, like, because you've said, ADHD, attention deficit disorder, we don't have our attention and we're always distracted, and the world outside is all about distraction, all these marketing things, people are on Facebook, all of these things. What is it that we're actually being distracted from?
Ourselves.
And so when you say ourselves, what would you say that is ourselves? Like, is it a distraction from a relationship with ourselves? Like, what about ourselves is it distracting us from?
I think it's distracting us from our own solitude, because every moment is filled with distraction, and we don't have when you spend any time alone now, or you have a second, you're immediately like, oh, I feel really uncomfortable with this. I don't enjoy this feeling. So you now don't know what it feels like to just be with yourself, quietly doing nothing.
And then
We have to train ourselves back to do nothing. I think teach yourself how to just do nothing for a bit, sit and do nothing, be bored. Like, forgotten how to be bored.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what's the gift in that? What's the gift in solitude? What's the gift in doing nothing? What do we gain from that?
Greater thinking, because you just have space to think. So now it's always an instant, what am I thinking, what am I doing, what's the next thing I have to be doing, saying, talking about. And then with that space comes freedom to not do that. And then you can just sit quietly with your thoughts and think, actually think, rather than just churning out thoughts.
right. And so I'm curious, thoughts and thinking, is there, because I know there's different ways of thinking of like contemplation or inner wisdom or a sense of knowing versus just rapid thoughts or thinking, or I guess it sounds like you're saying we're just constantly responding to things versus just like,
Yeah.
Or just saying reacting unconsciously.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing too is like critical thinking. Like, if there's depth with my thinking, then there's well, I say critical thinking, though there's also this connection to what Summer was saying, this knowingness, my intuition.
right.
Space
And
for that.
Kevin just said too, we get regenerated when we're quiet, when we're still. Like, our culture is so, I always talk about the industrial age. We always think that we should be producing things, and then there's this hyperactivity and this cortisol and this adrenaline constantly going through us. So is it easier or harder for people, would you say, with ADHD to rest, or is that not a thing?
I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, it's hard to rest because
Mm.
I'm always wanting to do stuff. My brain is always switched on, even when I go to bed. I mean, when I go to bed, that could be the worst. That can be when it switches on, it cranks even worse at like 1, and I'll be like, supposed to be going to sleep, and I'll just be want to get up and start doing stuff because my brain, that's how my brain works. But I think it generally is harder for people to just sit, do nothing, relax, shut down. Like if someone said to me, do you want to go on a holiday and we'll just sit by the pool and read all day? I'd be like, well, it sounds good, but I wouldn't be able to do it. I'll be 15 minutes, then I'll be up, then I'll be in the pool, then I'll be off here, then I'll be there, then I'll be, I can't just sit and chill. I chill by moving about.
So curious to hear. Yeah, go ahead, Summer.
Well, I was just
go
wondering,
ahead.
because you're talking about the brain in your podcast. I'm curious, do they talk about different neurotransmitters, chemicals, cortisol, adrenaline, any of those things is higher in ADHD, or because I don't know, is that something that they talk
No,
about?
it's dopamine.
Dopamine.
Yeah. Dopamine and norepinephrine. And there's like a lower neural pathways and how the chemicals move around and how much we produce, stuff like that. Like, I don't know the exact science of it all. So there's a lot going on. But we also crave dopamine because we don't produce enough of it. So we're always searching for it. We always want more dopamine. And a lot of the time that can come just from like low-hanging fruit, like whatever's nearest, we just go, yeah, dopamine. And we don't take
And
the
then don't
time
they
to...
say, yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I think they say your phone, when you're on it, you get dopamine hits, don't they?
Yeah. Because there's healthy dopamine and unhealthy dopamine. So your phone
Where do I
is
get me some
unhealthy.
healthy dopamine? Where do I get it?
Just from having doing something that you really have an interest in, like I exercise, walking the dog, stuff like that. That's healthy dopamine. And then there's the unhealthy dopamine, which is scrolling, playing video games, porn, all kind of stuff like that. Anything that gives you that instant little hit, but it's not really healthy for you. So we can, and with the impulsivity of ADHD, it means that we can easily always be going for the bad dopamine and not the healthy stuff, because the healthy stuff takes normally more effort, more attention, and it's not just an instant little hit. So
yeah, the marketing companies have really dialed into our wiring system, right? Our reward system. I call dopamine the reward system. That it's meant to, when I do exercise or get sex, I'm rewarded. I want more of that. But there's a way to earn it, versus now the systems are designed to not allow me to earn it. It gives me that instant gratification, so it becomes an addiction because it's so easy, readily available, like food, right? Sugar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even sex now, right? Yeah, with the dating apps and all that stuff. So, and I was curious, like you mentioned about like going to sleep and you're like totally wired, and Summer asked the question of like, like creating that space for solitude or perhaps managing it. And you mentioned there's some practical methods. So I'm curious to hear, what are your practical methods that you use to manage your ADHD, and you've seen that has helped the people that you work with?
The go-to for me is exercise, breath work, meditation if you can do it, but a lot of people struggle with that. So movement, sort of moving meditation like Tai Chi, That could be really good. But exercise for me is the number one. That's the go-to. Exercise every day. And if you're still restless and unable to focus, then exercise again. That really works. And then hopefully also that exercise will make you tired. So when you go to bed, your hyperactive mind will not keep you awake because your body's tired. So exercise has that double function of tiring you out as well. Because if you go to bed not tired, your brain will normally not let you sleep. So it's another, because ADHD people are prone to terrible sleep. Poor sleep, poor deep sleep. They might sleep for 8 hours, but there's not a lot of deep. There's not a lot of cycling through the different stages of sleep. So you wake up tired, but and everything's harder when you're tired. You know that. I mean everything. So if you're doing that every day of your life, and ADHD just sort of feels like doing everything. If you had to speak to a neurotypical person and try and explain ADHD, I'd say do everything for a day with your your non-dominant hand. So if that's your left or your right, whichever, but try doing everything. Make your breakfast, make your bed, go to work, put the gas in the car, do everything with your non-dominant hand. And that's what a day with ADHD feels like. Just extra tiring. Everything takes more effort, more thought. So that's the easiest way to explain it, I think.
I wonder, because you made this, and I noticed that Christine has a couple questions here because her daughter has ADHD. She was asking, do you find it difficult to multitask? And I'm curious how this plays back to our culture, because you said ADHD, we find it hard to focus on tasks we don't like, on academics, and you likened it to farmers versus hunters.
Yeah.
How much of this might be that our culture forces us to be farmers when some of us are hunters? Like hunters takes breaks. They would, I imagine, sit in the forest and wait and observe. They're quite quiet.
Yeah.
They would run through the forest. They would get their exercise. And so our daily living gives us our dopamine in the way that we need it, versus like most of us are sedentary. We don't exercise the way our work is. We're not outside as much. We have these fluorescent lighting mostly. So the light that we're getting, the food that we're getting, I'm just curious how much of that makes it so that we're not functioning optimally. And maybe there's more to be said about how we're living as a culture, and maybe what's increased in that to make ADHD also increase so much. And
I think
sorry, I just want to tie that back to multitasking, because I think there's an expectation that people need to be doing so busy in so many things. We have to run our kids to the soccer game, and we have to cook our own meals, and we have to do so many things. Like for me, my nervous system is like shot to hell, and I'm not sure our modern society is built for most people, never mind. And so I'm just want to tie all those pieces together from what you think.
No, I agree. I think that the modern world is very neurotypically arranged, that the ADHD brain struggles with it. And we want to go, I'd much rather go back to a more simpler time. I don't mean back to the caveman days, but I mean, just a simpler time, maybe like back in the, 30, 40 years ago, when everything wasn't so chaotic. Even just, I mean, I remember days before internet and mobile phones. So I remember that was much easier. And you didn't, you went out of the house and you didn't speak to anyone because no one could text you. You didn't go on your phone. You didn't check your emails. You didn't look on social media. You just went out the door, and you didn't speak to anyone until you met up with your friend that you were meeting with, and that was it. There was no overwhelm. very little overwhelm compared to what there is now. There's just constant overwhelm, and it's like you always feel like you're being expected to be doing something. I should be checking this. I should be checking that. Who's looking? Who needs me? I've got to check to see if anyone needs me. Like, you're always available, and you feel kind of guilty when if you want to shut down from that. There's this expectation to always be on call, which isn't cool.
Right. The busyness, yeah, the restlessness. And as you share that, like 30 years ago, no internet, no phone, such a simpler life. And it makes me
Mm,
think, and this is a theory that I'm putting out there, that, the ADHD is dormant, for example, and it's only like revealed more drastically through the advent of technology and through speeding up with the culture and things happening quicker. And it just makes it more prevalently known. And that could equate to why maybe there are a lot more diagnoses now. There are a lot more people with ADHD now, right? That
yeah.
could be one factor of many factors. So that was something that was very interesting. And um, I love the point that you mentioned about like I'd rather have it more quieter, or that hunter kind of
Mm,
contribution in that way. You speak about this dynamic difference and celebrating that. I'm curious to hear, how does this dynamic difference help you and our society? Like, if we were to celebrate, and let's say for the people that have ADHD, being aware of like where they can contribute in society, where their strengths, right,
mm.
are shown. I'm curious to hear about that.
Creativity. I'd say our creativity is one of our greatest strengths. Our curiosity and creativity. That's why ADHD brains make such great entrepreneurs, mostly. And there's so many. I mean that's kind of being the hunter, steering away from the neurotypical expectation of just getting a 9-to-5 job, and then you start your own business and you do your own thing, and you be the hunter, and that comes with its own difficulties, because starting a business, and there's a load of things in doing a business that doesn't suit the ADHD brain. So so it helps to find people that can do those things in your business, and then you do the stuff that suits you. Yay. Yeah, there you go.
Paperwork. Oh,
If you team up with the right person that is like the sort of yin to your yang, then you've got an unstoppable partnership there. Definitely. You've got the ADHD
Yeah.
brain and the neurotypical brain that partner up so well.
right. So speaking about partner well, like, how do you see ADHD affect people in relationships?
Difficult. Complicated.
All right.
Sorry.
Complicated. That's the word I'd probably say. Complicated.
Hmm.
Complicated.
So give us a scenario of what that looks like. And if you can't, we can.
And when ADHD affects every part of you, if you have it, it's not just affecting your focus and your impulsivity and your hyperactivity. It affects every part of your life, your relationships, your work, your romantic relationships. Affects your sleep. Like I said, it affects your sleep. It affects everything. Okay, it's interwoven into every part of you, and a lot that's quite hard to explain. It's quite difficult to get to grips with that. So to be in a relationship with someone and and try and get all that over to them, and have them understanding and accepting and coping with that when you don't necessarily do a good job of it yourself, brings a lot of difficulty to relationships, especially if it's undiagnosed. If you're undiagnosed, you're screwed, because then it's just like, no idea what's going on here, no idea how to fix it, because you're trying to explain behavior you don't even understand yourself. So you're like, people are asking like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Can you stop doing this? Can you stop doing that? Can we work on this? And then you're like, well, I'm trying, but I don't really know why I'm doing that thing. I don't know why that thing happens. I don't know why I feel that way. My emotions are always like up and down, like a roller coaster. Like that's one of the things that comes with ADHD. That is, when people say, all right, it's this the distractibility, inability to focus, the impulsiveness and the hyperactivity. But then there's the rejection sensitivity that we have. I would say that's the biggest problem for people with ADHD. The rejection sensitivity, the emotional hyper arousal that you just never know where it's gonna be from day to day, and it can just go up and down like within minutes. It's not like it's just a constant mood. And then we have an interest-based nervous system. So we just easily are prone to hyper-focusing on things, which can be good or bad. It can be really useful, or it can be, it's like a double-edged sword. It can also just take you away from everything you're supposed to be doing till you lose track of time and you annoy people around you because you're just like blinkered onto something for 8 hours and people don't understand that. So there's that other side to ADHD, you know, and then along with it comes all the guilt and the shame. The shame is huge. That's a huge factor because you're from an early age, you're just always being told off, criticized, judged. So you have like thousands more negative comments against you than a neurotypical kid. So you carry that shame into life as an adult.
Because you don't fit into the square box of what a prototypical good girl, good boy of society should look like or be like.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious because...
sorry.
Go ahead.
Dealing with it, accepting yourself and shedding that shame, that's a really important part of the process of dealing with ADHD, I think, because if you carry that around, then you're always going to be burdened by it.
Yeah, I'm curious because I think there's a lot of neurodivergence out there. I know my daughter's dyslexic, my ex-husband's dyslexic, there's autism, there's ADHD. I don't know if we can fit any of us into boxes, but one thing that fascinates me about what you just talked about was that, you know, a lot of people ADHD, it's attention deficit, but at times you're right. It's like obsessive compulsive. Here I am in one project and there's nothing else. I'm just like a dog on a bone. I'm sitting here focusing on the one thing, and then you've got family going, hello. I'm still here. I bet you a lot of
that's when you found something that's interesting to you. Like for we have specific motivators for ADHD. That the interest is obviously one. Then if it's new, novel, if it's exciting, if it's challenging, and then one of the main ones is if it's an emergency, or there's an urgency to it. You know, if you're like got the last day to hand in your exam paper or pay that bill, then you suddenly get everything you've been needing to do on your to-do list for a month done in one day. But it's taken that sort of far beneath your feet to get it done. So that is one of the main motivators, but it's not a healthy motivator because then you're always like coming from a place of stress, panic, you know. But you're getting things done, but it's always last minute flap. So it's not a healthy motivator to rely on like permanently. You need to sort of see your pattern and think, right, okay, I know I'm going to leave this to the last minute, and I'm going to make my life so stressful because it'll be a mad panic at the end. I'll get it done, but there's no need to add that extra stress. So that's another thing that ADHD can just causes stress. Causes a lot of stress and unneeded stress because you're just not doing things efficiently in a productive manner. So it's not
Yeah,
easy.
as you shared this, Steve, like I'm noticing like, hey, I do have some of that too. Like I work well under pressure when things are last minute. I like to work from urgency, and it gets me
Mhm.
motivated. I get it done. So um is ADHD a spectrum, like where there's a
Mm.
high level of these particular traits, and someone could be in the middle, and someone
Yeah,
can have
yeah,
a
yeah,
zip below?
yeah.
Okay.
It's not just like a set thing. If you speak to anyone with ADHD, they'll always have their own little unique traits that other people won't. There'll be a lot of crossover, but it's always slightly different. But I think everyone struggles real bad with the rejection side of it. Apparently, some people don't. I've heard that certain people don't, but I've yet to meet one. They're elusive.
Okay. And this
They're
and the
elusive. They're out.
rejection is
They're out there.
because, yeah, it's because there's a sensitivity,
Mhm.
emotional sensitivity
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah. And it's not just real rejection; it's perceived rejection. Any rejection. We even reject ourselves with our own thoughts. We'll just get rejected by something we thought in our head, like, "Oh God," and then you'll plummet down for the day. And
yeah.
it's bad. Yeah, the rejection side of it is real hard.
Mm.
Yeah, so I know there are some other questions like so for people who know, like my daughter has ADHD, I have ADHD. How do we support people in our lives that we know have ADHD? Like, what's the most supportive someone who may be more neurotypical?
Mhm.
How can they be more supportive to those that are not?
Be as patient as you can. Be as
Patience.
patient as you. Yeah, you have to be as loving and kind and patient as you can be, and understanding. You just have to have a willingness to be there, because it's always going to be a roller coaster of a ride. So you need to just be patient and listen. Ask questions and let them explain and ask questions, because the more you spend time with the person, the more you can sort of understand. Okay, they're not going to like this. This is going to bother them. They're going to find that hard. Then you can be more understanding of them when they're struggling with something, and you can help them to do things in a different way where that'll be easier for them to do.
Mm.
If you know there's going to be something that's not going to work with their head, then you just say, all right, I'll do the shopping list and you go and cut the grass or something. Don't just choose easier things in the relationship or the friendship that suits them. But ADHD people make very good friends, I think, good partners as well.
Oh,
Why is that?
sure. Yeah, why is that?
because we're creative. We always want to create fun in the relationship and change things up. We don't like boredom.
Mm.
So we always want to spice things up, try different things. When it becomes tedious and we lose interest, then we want to shake things up a bit. So I think that's a good quality.
Mm.
It can be super annoying, but so when you don't want it, but
Mm.
but
Yeah, just
no
working
one's
with, yeah, being
perfect.
with.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, just
yeah.
being yourself. That's all you can be.
Mm.
I know
There's
I
one thing you
liken
mentioned. Oh yeah, go ahead.
um one thing I consider myself is an abstract random thinker. I can tie different types of information together
Yeah,
to make a cohesive picture. And that's something that I would consider a strength. And you're right, most people can't follow that. And then I struggle
mm,
to, although I've done it, but struggle to get it into a cohesive communication where people can see the interrelated pieces that I see.
yeah,
Um, yeah, because the logical linear mind only sees one way, and therefore actually can't solve problems that require a creative mind that isn't one track. It needs that abstract random thinking that can see patterns, rather than just one way.
Yeah. Would you say that you're a visual? You picture things in your head, like you see it as a picture.
Yes, definitely. I actually wonder how like ADHD and maybe dyslexia, like how they're overlapped, because I know that, like for example, basic math for dyslexic is impossible, but physics, easy. And so there's these bigger concepts that are easier to comprehend, but then the small details and the things underneath it, for me, are like, oh my God, shoot me now. And there's so many different things that people can do. My ex-husband was a wizard at spreadsheets, and I'm like, oh, could you please help me? I can't even, no, please. I can't even look at it. Don't make me look at it. And I forget what your question is. My mind has already gone off somewhere else, but
I asked you if you were a visual, like how you
yes,
think.
visually,
Yeah.
I'm definitely a visual person. Absolutely.
Yeah.
See images,
Yeah.
colors, all of those things.
Yeah, I think ADHD people view things, like see things visually. They have to picture the things in their head, and then sometimes difficult to get the image of the thing in your head out when you communicate. Trying to explain things to people, because you can't just take the picture out and show them. This is what I'm thinking. It's it just comes out in all this garbled words, and people are like, "What are you on about?" And you're like, "It's clear in my head. Why can't you see it?" And you're like, "Because I can't come inside your head, so you're just gonna have to."
It's so true. Thank you. Yeah, because
and you can't write it down, and you can't say it out, and it comes out wrong. You're like, no, that's not what I mean, and you get really frustrated because it's like so clear, this picture, but you can't vocalize that.
And then isn't that saying a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Like, how can I send this one picture? Pictures are metaphorical and multi-layered versus the verbal is just so slow at conveying information, right? And often I'll be talking to people and I'll be like, and I can't say the word. And then, but I'm like, I'm picturing this. And then they're like, oh, you mean this? And I'm like, yeah. Because I have the picture in my head and not the language that forms with it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You're helping me a great deal today.
Sometimes I find it easier to just draw something, even if it's the most rubbish drawing. It'll be easier for me to just draw the thing, go, this is what I mean, rather than trying to just garble it out in like 10,000 words, and the person's there going, okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, how do you like games like Trivial Pursuit versus Pictionary? I mean, do you play those games?
I love board games, yeah. So I enjoy board games in general.
Do you have a preference of like Trivia Pursuit or Pictionary?
I love Pictionary. I love Pictionary, but on some days I love Trivial Pursuit.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. But I do love Pictionary. I do love Pictionary because there's obviously the sort of, you switch with your partner, you draw, I'll answer, and you flip around. So I do enjoy that. And I think with certain brains, you can mesh so well where you just draw like a blob and they're like, that's that. And other people, you're drawing the most amazing drawing and they still can't see it. And you're like, it's clear as hell what I'm drawing, man. And they're just not getting
fun times. The good times, the best moments of Pictionary.
Best moments.
I wanted to ask you this question here. Like you mentioned about like dedication over medication. Yeah, why? Why dedication over medication?
I'm not anti-medication. They tried to put me on medication straight after my diagnosis, and I didn't get on with it. And I also thought, well, I've gone 46 years without. Why would I suddenly, because of some person telling me something, suddenly jump on medication. And I thought, all right, I'm gonna just go it without. And then I explored every way I could to manage it without the medication. But you have to be dedicated to that. You have to do lots of things on a daily basis to sort of stay on top of the symptoms and manage it. So if you do the hard things, it makes the ADHD easier. But you have to be dedicated to doing those things.
I'm curious if you have a list of those hard things, and I'm wondering how. Well, maybe we'll have to have you on again, because I have a really brilliant, beautiful 18-year-old, along with my daughter. But he did his own experiments. He went on the medications, and he was like, I can stay focused on work for a long time, but then later I find I crash and I just need to sleep. Like it's not a consistent thing. It's almost like okay, my mind can focus and I'm numb to everything else. And so I can because he's a computer programmer, he can get it all done.
Right.
But then he doesn't feel like he can then connect to people or with his friends afterwards. And so he on and off of it a few times. And I know it would probably support him to know, like, okay, what are those hard things? What does really support you? And if it's a long list and we need to have you on again, maybe we will.
Well, it's the things that work for you. It's not one specific thing for one person. It's whatever works for you. And just remembering to do those things. Like, I've got to exercise, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to eat specific foods, and I've also the things you shouldn't do. This is just as important as the things that you do. Like, I shouldn't eat loads of sugar. I shouldn't be on my phone all the time. Yeah, so this is having sort of non-negotiables around what works and what doesn't work, and then remembering to just do those things. And it might be hard because you have ADHD and you're like, oh, I forgot, can't be bothered, lost interest. But if you don't do them, the ADHD is worse. So it's better to just do the hard things and be a bit more disciplined around it than just wing it and hope for the best every day.
It sounds like this dedication takes
work.
Work.
Dedication. Yeah, it's dedication. It takes
Lifelong.
work. It's a lifestyle. Definitely. Yeah.
So then I'm curious too, then in terms of relationships, is probably helpful. Like, I go to the gym with Dre, and so have someone else who's supporting all those good habits and things like that. There's one more comment there about, is it common for people with ADHD to be people pleasers? I don't know if they're more or less than people, but yeah.
I think we'd be more prone to it, yeah, because we're avoiding the rejection. We avoid the rejection, and we've had so many people upset with us over the years, that we just people please a bit more than we should. So yeah.
And then how does that affect our success in terms of doing the hard things for ourselves if we're people pleasing others?
Yeah, you have to sort of get tighten up your boundaries, and so prioritize yourself, because we can forget to prioritize ourselves completely, because the people pleasing takes over.
Right. We're big into feelings and needs over here, and trying to figure out, okay, what is it that we're doing and why are we doing it, and how can we communicate those things?
Yeah. So for me, I need to sort of take myself away in the morning and do all the things I need to do to set myself up for the day. If I don't, then things can sort of go off the rails a bit.
Right. Your ritual.
I need to have my morning the way that works for me. And if I prioritize myself, then I'm much better for everyone around me. If I don't, then it can go a bit pear-shaped.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it's like a lived experience to start experimenting what works and what doesn't for me, and then start to become more aware. of like when I have that capacity, right? So I'm
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
always curious to hear what your routine or ritual looks like. I'd love for you to share it in the comments if that's open and available. And we're coming to time here, so I want to help close up the space by checking in with you, Steve. Of like, tell us about your podcast and tell us where we can follow you, where we can connect with you.
You can connect with me on LinkedIn and on Instagram. The podcast is in the process of recording the first 6 episodes. I want to celebrate ADHD in all its raw beauty, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just get a real in-depth conversation with guys that have got ADHD and they've found success even with the ADHD. Some have been diagnosed their whole life. Some are very newly diagnosed. So there's going to be quite a variety of guests on there. And that's going to be, well, as soon as I finish doing the recording, as everything with ADHD, the minute you put a time limit on everything, you stress yourself out. So when it's, but it'll be ready soon. It'll be ready soon.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Steve. And this was an enlightening
Pleasure.
conversation for me. I got a lot of light bulb moments. I know Summer had something click there too, I saw with her reaction. And yeah, thank you for sharing your wisdom from a place of
Pleasure.
your own lived experience.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
And everyone, you can connect with us again every Friday at 12 p.m. Get Resource. You can follow us, like and subscribe at Get Resourced on YouTube. And you also check us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. See you next time.
Thanks for all your questions, everybody.
Ciao.
So yeah.